Okay, so this is our initial setup here. I am running. So what we have here is we have the 10th Soviet Shock Army, which has just pushed over the Rhine into West Germany and caught the mechanized Irish Guards completely by surprise. So I'm running the Irish Guards here. We've got our headquarters right there. We've got one platoon right here using warriors. Another platoon of warriors over here. We've got a couple scorpions that are hiding in the trees. Got a chieftain that's kind of hunkered up to the trees right there. And then finally the big one hiding behind my beer here is the Challenger platoon, which is over here. OG, tell us what you have. You were running
tanks.
Tanks?
I have a lot of tanks.
So you're running a T-72 company.
Yep. With some T-64s, T-62 sprinkled in there. And then I have artillery and a recon group of BMPs.
Carnation artillery battery there. There's his spotter there. I'm guessing he's going to make a break for the hill, and then he's going to die before he even sees it. Then he's got his recon BMPs there. He's all set up for a dash across the middle. As you can see, our board is very terrain heavy. And then off table, he's got his 4 Hinds, which are going to wreak horrendous havoc. And then I have 2 Harriers, which I am hoping will pepper the Hinds, but we'll wait and see. So that is the onset. We will brief you after each turn. Okay, so end of the first turn. Unfortunately for me, I rolled to go first, which means all of my guys had a rate of fire of 1. My Milans are not able to shoot while moved, so they did not get to shoot, and my airplanes couldn't come on the board. So really, we just had minimal damage to Owen. He lost one. What is that, Owen? Is that a T-72? Bailed a BMP when the Scorpions moved up and shot at him. And then over here, he made 2 amazing armor saves on his... Are those T-64s?
Yeah.
T-64s versus the Challengers. The T-64s are his best tank. Challengers are my best tank. Now we're going to see the counterattack, which he's going to have second turn, which I know is going to be awful. Okay. So here we are at the end of the first Soviet turn. So obviously his helicopters came after my Challengers. Fortunately, he only had 2 hits on them. One guy managed to bounce the hit, and obviously one of the Challengers went up in flames. However, that was a catastrophe for me. And Owen, what happened over here?
My T-72s, your chieftains had to reload, and while they were in the process of reloading their shells, the mighty fist of the Russian army.
They went down like a bunch of chumps. So his motivation's really high. So his guys have gotten into their vehicles and they are pretty much on the move. So at the end of his turn, at the end of the first turn, I've lost 1 Challenger and 2 Chieftains, and he's only lost 1 T-72 over there.
Yeah.
And his artillery tried to fire in, but it was very hard for him. He has to roll 5s, so everyone's kind of still sitting here. So we'll see what happens. I am hoping that my warriors will be able to get some shots off at his helicopters. I have already rolled to see if my Harriers came in, and I rolled the all-powerful 1, so there will be no air support this round, which really stinks because I need it. But we'll see what happens.
I'll have to start testing.
Well, I have never rolled so many 1s in my entire life. The aircraft failed to come in. All of the warriors here opened fire on the Hinds, managed to barely shoot down 1. That tank must have been hit like 3 or 4 times and just bounced all of the rounds that went off of them. This Milan team here managed to actually bail that tank because I cannot roll more than a 1 on my firepower. These Milan teams here shot into this platoon right here, and their missiles basically plopped right into the water. They also rolled very poorly. However, the good news is the heroes of the Scorpions, they actually got both their firepower shots off and destroyed the 2 BMPs of his scout platoon right there. So that is the end of my second turn, and I am going to pay horribly for my poor rolls here on Owen's turn. Okay, so Owen, tell us what happened.
I killed 2 scorpions
You sure did.
and 2 warriors.
So the tanks moved up, went right into the scorpions there.
Yeah, I hear the scorpion commander
Were
call them
very,
pipsqueaks.
they were very angry. Then he blew up 2 warriors here once his tanks advanced. He also blew up an infantry stand there. He was aiming at the Milans, but I was lucky and got to roll it off. And then over here, he aimed at those Milans, but I was lucky to bounce it to another infantry stand. And I was very lucky in the sense that his
Had a
Hinds,
little too much vodka.
his Hinds choked. So, all right, so that is the end of Soviet turn 2.
Time you bail me, it just makes us more angry.
That was the end of turn 2 or turn 3?
Turn 2.
Turn 2. No, this is turn 3. Beginning of this is the end of the British turn 2. So had some success. Another Hind was shot down by the warriors, and then the challengers went ahead and bailed out one tank, blew up another one over here. These Milans could not hit diddly. They fired over here. Then over here, we opened fire with some Carl Gustavs and managed to completely blow our firepower rolls, resulting only in 1 bale. And then the good news is the airstrike came in with where they bombed the entire area, and you wouldn't believe it, but with 7 anti-aircraft rolls with his top machine guns, he actually managed to shoot down one of the Harriers. But the Harriers blew up 2 tanks here, so he's lost his first platoon right there. And I was going to put it on his company commander right here, but he was able to deflect it. So that's the end of my turn. So we're going back to Soviets turn 3. Okay, so here we are at the end of Soviet turn 3. And Owen, why don't you tell us what you did?
I killed a challenger and
With the Hinds, they made a good hit there.
bailed 2 warriors.
With T-72 platoon came in here, engaged, bailed 2 warriors. However, that guy was blown up by the T-64s on the ridge there, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And then over here, we have some fire that occurred from... that was previous turn.
Yeah.
And these guys here all fired into the entrenched infantry. They were targeting these Milans in particular. But I got very lucky. Those guys kept their heads down in the holes. So far, that was a very rough turn. The hardest part about this is that this poor sap, right, hiding behind my beer, is going to be testing every turn to see if he flees. So that's no good. All right, so on to turn 4. Okay, so beginning of turn 5, I believe? 4. Britain, turn 4. Worst turn ever. Failed our challenger roll. So there he is. He ran away. We did manage to remount one of our warriors over here. And the anti-aircraft, all the warriors fired at the helicopters and completely missed. Or actually, no, he failed his firepower tests. Or he failed his... I had 2 hits on him and was not able to do my firepowers. These Milans shot at these tanks and missed. These Carl Gustavs shot at these tanks and he bounced them with his armor saves. These Milans fired and missed. And these Carl Gustavs fired into here and completely bounced. I think he bounced the rolls there. And then the Harriers came in. We found out that last turn we had done the anti-aircraft wrong. So he actually would not have shot down any of my Harriers. So they came in and they had a bombing giant template on all 5 of these tanks. And they did not hit a single tank. So the entire turn went by without me hitting a single thing and a challenger running away. That, ladies and gentlemen, could be the beginning of the end. So we'll start the Soviet turn. Okay. So over here, I lost another warrior from, I believe it was that tank, wasn't it?
It was one of these.
Yeah. And then these guys shot at the infantry, but the infantry just hunkered down in their holes and just kind of held out. And your CO shot over into this platoon, firing at the Milans, the troublesome Milans, but he managed to survive it. Then the T-62s backed away because the 2 helicopters had come in to drop a salvo. They dropped a salvo, only managed to pin down the platoon. I made all my saves, but the T-62s managed to kill one more warrior in the process, and the remaining 2 warriors fired in defensive fire and managed to knock out one of the helicopters. So he's down to his last hind. And that is the end of Soviet turn 4. Okay, so British turn 5 was the shortest turn ever. Failed to remount into our vehicle. Failed aircraft save. Aircraft roll, so no Harriers this turn. The Milans, Carl Gustavs, everything fired into this unit here. He got hit twice, made his armor saves because Owen is on fire today. And then these guys failed their rally roll, so they remain pinned down. The Milans do not have a movement firing, so while they're pinned, they can't shoot. And rather than fire like the 2 Carl Gustavs, which can actually reach the tanks here, these guys could not fire because they fired in defensive fire last turn. So what I went ahead and did is I opted not to fire and just had my guys go to ground, so they're a little bit harder to hit. So that was the shortest turn ever. And like I said, it's time to get another beer because I think it's the beginning of the end, right?
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so here we are at the end of Soviet turn 5. It was very successful turn for O to the G. Knocked out both of my Milans with tank fire from here and from here. That brutal ability on the main gun is friggin' brutal. So, and then he also wound up killing a couple other infantry that were out in the open. Bailed out some more warriors as we continue to hold the line until... the only thing that can save me now is a tactical nuke. So we're just we're waiting on that. HQ is still doing fine. Good news was the Hind maneuvered here and used his chain gun to try and get side shots on these warriors, but wound up making the armor saves there. And then over here, the T-62s went ahead and fired into this group here. And I don't think I made all the saves for there, right? But the good news is that for the first time in the game, his Carnation battery, clear in the back there, actually managed to drop some arty and blew up a Carl Gustav and bailed out one of the warriors. So that is the end of Soviet turn 5. Okay, it's British. I don't know. This must be turn 6. So over here, Carl Gustavs. No, actually, they did not. Yes, actually, they did fire. They tried to fire this turn. It did not go over well. Our 2 Milans were heroic in this round. They went ahead and blew up a T-72 in the rear. And then the other Milan shot another T-62 over here. 3 hits. 3 hits to Carl Gustavs right there. And he rolled like a 4, 5, and a 6 for his armor saves. He was amazing. And then these warriors here fired their 30mm guns at the lone hind. And again, 3 hits. And he rolled, again, 4, 5, and 6. This guy has sold his soul to the devil. So we are starting now Soviet turn 5. Yeah. Okay. End of British turn 7. So these guys just hunkered down, gone to ground. There are 3 infantry stands there, so they are still in good standing. Over here, between these warriors, they managed to shoot down the last hind. And even though the last hind died, Owen even said, "Man, that guy did good." And then the combination of the Milans and the Carl Gustavs did quite a number on these T-62s over here, which managed to blow up, I think, 2 of them and bail 1. And we ran out of the small fire, so apparently that guy had a big, huge gas leak. And then the other success was over here. Harriers came in. They dropped their cluster bombs over the area, so it consumed both his Carnation battery and his CO, which you're doing some repairs on. What happened?
I just broke it again.
Is it your smoke dispensers, right?
I broke the light, and then as I just fixed the light, I broke the MG.
Okay, so he lost his company commander and he lost 1 Carnation. So it was not a bad turn for the Brits. And we're going now to the Soviets. Soviet turn 6. So there was some firing that did not result in any hits. But then the T-72 platoon crept around, caught the company commander by surprise, and assaulted him. Fortunately, the company commander survived the assault and is now running for his life as his command vehicle is also running over here. And then he pulled within range here. And what his motivation here is he's trying to, the minimum range of the Carl Gustavs is 8. So if it's closer than 8, then the missiles won't engage. And so he's trying to get up nice and close so that I can't use the Carl Gustavs. So we'll see what happens with that. Anyway, that is the end of turn 6. We'll go to Britain. Okay, we're getting down to it. These infantry here went up and shot their rockets at they shot their 66 millimeter heat, like the little launchers, into his back, into the rear armor of those C-72s. I forgot that he has a what's that armor called?
BDD armor.
He's got BDD armor, which completely pinged it off. Went ahead and assaulted him anyway. He turned his machine guns on me and completely stopped the assault. Killed 1 guy. These guys are definitely going to have to test next turn. And then a little bit more success over here. Even though he closed where my 2 Milans could not shoot at him, I had 3 Carl Gustav teams, which managed to knock out 2 of his 3. So that guy will be testing on the Soviet turn. So it's getting close, getting real close. Okay, Soviet turn. I don't know. So the T-64s came down and annihilated what was left of this platoon. So that platoon is finally left. That was the second formation that he destroyed, or second platoon of the formation, the first being the Challenger, so that's 2 down. Then he moved over to where the British company commander was. The remaining T-62 made its morale check, so it stuck around. And then these 3 T-72s came up. They shot him up, killed him, which caused him to leave. And then now I'm down 3 units from my formation, and we'll even see if I stick around. Okay, and I did not make my morale check. So what basically happens is my last platoon here goes ahead and flees off of the board, resulting in a Warsaw Pact Soviet win. This was our very first game of Team Yankee. We are Flames of War players, but we, as you can see, some of our vehicles here, these are our first 2 armies. Some of them aren't even primed yet. But overall, I felt like the scenario was very well balanced. We played, I should have said this at the beginning, we played Annihilation. So we were playing who makes the first formation leave. And in my formation, I had 2 infantry platoons, a Challenger platoon, and then my HQ. And in Owen's formation, he had a lot more. He had 2 T-72 platoons, a T-72 commander. His Carnations actually counted as part of his formation, and his BMPs counted as part of his formation. Overall, I thought it was a lot of fun. The biggest complaint I have about this game is, like every other game, it depends on dice. Yeah. And those are my cursed dice right there, which completely failed me. They rolled ones more than sixes. So, but it's very lethal. I think playing on a board with lots of terrain is probably necessary in this game because the ranges and everything is very lethal. What were your thoughts, OG?
It was good. It was good. I hated going up a hill. That's the hardest thing in any game ever. Is going
Yeah,
up a hill.
yeah. So the way that we declared the terrain was a skill check going up to each level, and the entire game, his T-64s, which are his best tanks, were struggling. Just he needed fives to get up that hill, so he was struggling to get up the hill. So he really had me at a huge advantage with morale, though. His guys really stuck around, while my guys flee on a 4 or better, or excuse me, on a 4, 3 or less. And I was just not making the rolls to be able to get my people to stick around. And my planes, when they came on, were wonderful. But that was the whole trick of it, is getting them to come on. And the challengers, I'm not really sure if they're worth it for the points. Definitely is nice bouncing off the rounds, but you have to have an answer to the helicopter problem. The Heinz, would you say the Heinz were your MVP unit?
Mm-hmm. Either that or my T-72s.
Your T-72s, yeah. I do have the Lynxes, so I'll have to try the Lynxes and see what they do, but I played without them. I think my MVP unit is probably my Harriers or these warriors and these Milan platoons, these mixed platoons they're so cool. The Carl Gustavs couldn't do anything against the T-72s or the T-64s, but they made very short work of these T-62s. And then these Milans are wonderful. So if you're running a British infantry company, I would highly recommend that you buy the Milan packs for them and get those things maxed out, because those are absolutely wonderful missiles. Chieftains, I think you don't want to field those unless you field them in large numbers, because the Chieftains, other than their skill level and their rate of fire, they're really very similar to the T-72, so you're really just kind of losing the numbers game. The heavy armor of the challengers can sit there and go toe-to-toe with these Soviet tanks 3-1, but you can't do it. Can't do it if the guy's got 4 Heinz, which is what happened here. So overall, it was a great game. I will go ahead and put all of these videos together and let you guys take a look. So I can't wait to play it again. I think we like it, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not better than Flames of War, but different, right?
Yeah.
As much as Flames of War, but a different experience. So, all right. Well, cool. We'll make another video.